Okay,
Lovely.
so welcome to another edition of Mark My Words, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and charity founders about their experiences and insights. So I'm really pleased to say I've got Richard with us
Hey
today.
guys, all right.
Hi, Richard. Thank you so much for doing this. So could you just tell us about who you are and share a bit of information about your current professional role and activities, if that's okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, hi guys. Lovely to be here, Mark. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, as I said, as Mark said, my name is Richard Kirtley, and I am the divisional director of Purple Shoots. I moved to Sheffield in 2012. I came here to study. I studied law. I decided after about 3 months that I definitely didn't want to be a lawyer, so focused on playing a lot of hockey and other things, and got a degree. But rather liked Sheffield, as did my wife, who, well, at the time wasn't my wife. And so we both decided we wanted to settle here. And in that time, I've worked in a number of different sort of industrial positions. I worked at Durham Duplex, selling machine knives, and then Sheffield Forge Masters, selling offshore oil, gas, and renewable components, rather bigger than a machine knife. But yeah, at the start of 2022, I approached the CEO of our charity or social enterprise, I suppose, or a few things really, Purple Shoots, and said that I'd be really interested in starting a South Yorkshire plant. I'd done some volunteering for them over the pandemic, basically, because I was getting a bit bored, um, and really liked the look of what they were doing. And so interestingly, their ideas were also to expand into a different geographical location. And so we plucked at South Yorkshire. And what is it that Purple Shoots do? Well, we do a load of stuff, to be quite honest. It's always a really difficult thing to describe, but our bread and butter, I suppose, is micro business finance. So we do loans of up to £5,000 to support people with really great business ideas. They've put a load of thought and work into it. But they then approach often mainstream lenders and they get told, no, we're not going to support you in that. Often people are judged based on their sort of past circumstances rather than the actual business plan and the future that that brings. And so we overlook people's past and present, and we sort of look at their future ideas and we say, yeah, you know what, we'll get behind you on that. So that's kind of our bread and butter. But alongside that goes a load of other support kind of um, areas, if you like. We can do mentorship. We can do just general chat and sort of helping people with their ideas and stuff like that. And another thing that we do, if there's someone who's a bit sort of unsure about whether to start a business or not, we run things called self-reliant groups, and that's basically a group of people who would meet together to um, do anything really. It could be crafts, it could be reading, it could be writing, knitting, you name it, gardening. But the idea is that they form together to create a micro enterprise, a little sort of collective, a cooperative, if you like, where they can sort of make a bit of money, but also discover new skills and attributes and things about themselves that they didn't really know about. So we've got 50 of those groups running in the UK at the minute. They're growing. It's really exciting. And yeah, Purple Shoots itself is really stepping up, if you like. We're sort of changing quite a lot and for the better. And it's a very exciting time for us. Hopefully that's enough.
Yeah, wow, thank you. I didn't know all of that, both your personal journey and some of that background. Yeah, thank you. And so do you know where the name Purple Shoots comes from then?
Yeah, absolutely. It basically when our CEO Cameron was forming Purple Shoots, which was 10 years ago, so this year's our 10th birthday. Basically, a lot of the other kind of financial institutions, they're kind of like business enterprise fund or finance for enterprise, which they're not bad names, but what we found is that a lot of our clients, like, they're quite sort of alienated by that sort of language. Something completely innocuous and just a bit neutral. And I think it also happens that purple is our CEO's favorite color. So purple, CEO's favorite color, shoots that idea of growth, growing, and yeah, that was us, and that's been us for the last 10 years.
Right, I like it because it's a bit intriguing, isn't it? It's not
It is,
always, on face value, it doesn't always say what it is, but when you know a bit more of the story, like you said, yeah. So thank you for that. And so my next question is, thinking about starting a business can often be overwhelming. So what do you think are the key financial considerations that entrepreneurs often overlook or might not give enough thought to? And how would you sort of navigate those challenges, do you think?
And this is a really good question. And there isn't like an honest answer or an easy answer, I don't think, because I think, like, as you alluded to there, starting a business is really, really difficult. The best advice that I can give is expect it to be very cyclical. So what we find with a lot of businesses that we start up is that the first 3 months are just the best thing ever because you've got your £5,000 loan, say, from Purple Shoots. You're new, you're exciting, you really make sort of a lot of headway and you become something to your community which wasn't there before. But the problem is people, they're cyclical, aren't they? They sort of like they get really excited about something and then it dips. And so what we always find is that months like 1 to 3 are great, but 4 to 6 it like really plummets. Okay. And that's not symbolic of a bad business. That's just a real kind of classic sort of thing that happens. So first things first, I always say make hay while the sun shines. So make the most of those real boom times, those times when things are going really well. And if you can, look at sort of tucking away some of that money, that profit that you're making, just to cover those more difficult sort of leaner periods, because they will come. But what we always find is that if you can navigate those leaner 4 to 6 month periods, then things really do take off again. And it's really interesting how that goes because what you do is you sort of find things that work. And I think the best advice we give for all sorts of finances and for people who are starting a business is don't ever lose your creativity. Um, Often you might spend months and months writing a business plan and putting all of the thought into it, and then people come to actually enact that business plan on, and day one it's changed. Something's completely different. The market is shifted. Don't lose that creativity because what we find is that actually that creativity and trying new things being I suppose able to improvise and innovative, that's really important. And I think a lot of business owners when they start up they think, oh well, I've got to do it as I said, otherwise it might go wrong. But actually having a bit of bravery as well to say I'm going to do something a bit different, I'm going to try it, that's a really good way to navigate those financial pressures, I would say.
Wow, I really like that. Yeah, and you often think about sort of whether you're selling product or service in terms of seasonality. It's rare, isn't it?
Yeah.
That people sell the same amount from January to December.
Yeah.
But kind of what you've just said is almost like a little bit of a different take on it or a bit more extension. I really like that. Yeah, it's really helpful.
And it's just sort of what we find really. Like I say, there's so much whenever like a new business starts up, like so where I live, for example, there's always a real hype about it. But then obviously that natural hype, that organic hype, it always dips. And you've just got to be able to sort of see beyond that and say, right, okay, what can I do to get through that? And what can I do to then pick it up again? And
Mm-hmm.
the businesses that we support that do that, they do really, really well.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. And I guess that leads me on to the next question, really. So maintaining a positive outlook then is crucial, especially in the face of challenges or those sort of leaner periods, as you say. So how do you strike a balance between staying optimistic and positive, but also grounded and realistic in your approach, either to work or in your personal life, if you don't mind me asking?
God, yeah. I mean, this is interesting because I am the biggest catastrophizer you would ever meet in your life. If if something goes wrong, I am just there like, oh my goodness. Um, I think staying positive, like I think it's. I'm sort of trying to think really what I would do to do that. I don't know. I'm kind of naturally quite a positive person anyway. That sort of helps. But I think what I have found is that sort of when the tough times come, and they do come quite regularly. I think personally taking yourself out of that situation and so taking a big step back, and that could be like a number of different things. But one thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs especially forget is that like you've got a life beyond the business, and you've really got to respect that, because otherwise you'll end up being consumed by it. Now, I'm not saying don't work hard. I'm not saying you're gonna have to put a real graft in, but often when you take a step back and you sort of perspectivize, if you like, you kind of have a look at your surroundings. You connect with the world around you. Often little pathways start to emerge. They start to sort of piece together almost, and you can start to sort of make a bit of light of that situation. And I think that's really important. And that's not to say like you're turning your back on sort of those issues, that negativity, etc. But you're really kind of you're sort of making sure that actually you're looking at what there is around, which can help you, like I say, get through it. And I think that's the best advice that I could give. Just taking that time to take a big step backwards and just say, right, just take stock, just have 5 minutes. Let's see what we can do here. I think that's the best advice I could give, to be honest.
And it's interesting you say at the beginning that bit about sometimes you catastrophize, because I wouldn't have got that at all, because you always seem to be quite a positive person when I've met you. And yeah.
Oh, and this is it, and this is the perception thing, isn't it? Because like, actually, to you, we've had some wonderful conversations. We've like met each other loads, and I've always been, really, really great. But then, like, and probably this falls on my wife, and because I go home and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is an absolute disaster. Um, I think that sort of context is really important there, and so like, I think probably to build on that, if you can create yourself a really wonderful support network, family and friends, that's often a really good place. And like, I am the first person to say, right, let's go for a pint with a mate or something like that. Let's just put the world to right, even though you're not really. That's really sort of, that's kind of how it happens, really. But I don't. If you asked that question of my wife, she would have a very different answer.
Moving on then.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So Purple Shoots have helped many different various startups. Is there a particular success story that stands out to you that you could share? And maybe particularly one, where you've sort of given that financial support to, I suppose.
Yeah, this was a really hard question because the reality is there's just quite a lot. So to put it into context, there's often a lot of adversity that sort of accompanies a Purple Shoots client. So in the last 12 months, 96% of our borrowers have been on benefits before they basically started up their business. Really, we're talking people who've been either long-term unemployed or actually quite recently unemployed as well. Amongst that, you've got a lot of people who are probably suffering abuse of some form, unfortunately, or have suffered some form of abuse, and with credit scores which are just through the floor. And there's a number of kind of real amazing examples that I could give. But one lady, she's an asylum seeker actually. So she came to the UK, I think about 6 years ago now, and she fled persecution from her home country. And it was a really sort of heartbreaking story, actually. It was really it got me, to be quite frank. But we were dead chuffed to support her, basically. And what she wanted to do was run an Afro-Caribbean mini mart and do home deliveries. And basically, what she'd figured is that everyone in her little community they were all sort of the same ethnicity, from the same backgrounds, and they were having to drive like long distances to basically get food that they would cook with, because it's very niche, it's very specific. And she thought, well, hang on a second, I've successfully run businesses in the past. Why don't I do it here in the UK? And so she approached, well, first of all, she approached some other lending institutions and basically just got told no, not happening, which was really sad. So she approached us and said, look, would you help me? I said, yeah, let's look at it. So we worked with her, we cracked on with a loan. And, I checked in with her a couple of days ago, and last time I heard, she's doing really, really well. Business is booming as she expected. There's been, a real demand for what she wants because her community wanted it, which is fantastic. interestingly, she still had that 4 to 6 month dip. There was still that little dip time, but she's now kind of coming back out of it and doing really, really well. So that's really exciting, and I'm dead chuffed for her. So I think that's the one that I would give at the moment. But the reality is, there's countless stories. Go and check out our website, purpleshoots.org. You'll see that there is just an absolute plethora of really inspiring people who've overcome such odds, and I think that I think they should be applauded, quite frankly, and probably given a medal or some sort of recognition in the New Year's honours list.
Brilliant. What a lovely story as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And you've touched a bit on this already, but I think it's worth just pulling out a little bit more. So kind of thinking about balancing work and personal life, that can be a challenge, for business startups, entrepreneurs in particular. I would imagine people that've got those extra pressures that you've just mentioned. So kind of what do you do to maintain a healthy work-life balance, and how do you prioritize that self-care piece?
It was very badly. I was hitting a bit of I was in a bit of a bad place, quite frankly, feeling very worn down, run down, emotionally very burdened, because with our brilliant clients, like I said, there's so much baggage, if you like, that comes with that. There's so much hardship that you kind of have to navigate through with them, and I was really taking that back home. And with technology as it is nowadays, it's so hard to switch off from that, because you flick your phone on, you go to emails, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I've got to do this now, I've got to action this, and this was at 8 o'clock at night. So what do I do to sort of switch off? First of all, and recently I've implemented a 7 till 10 phone block. So phone goes off, literally thrown away, not thrown away, but put far away, between 7 and 10. And it's caused other stresses, because it means I'm a club secretary in the hockey club, and 7 till 10 is often the peak time for people in the hockey club who are like, Richard, what's happening here? So I have to pick that up at another time, but that's fine, they're learning. But what it does is it just means that I can sort of take that step back and just chill. And my chilling is, sometimes it's not chilling. I love going running. I'm a really keen runner. And I do crazy things like going out into the Peak District with a head torch on and seeing how far I can get lost, basically, which has happened quite badly a few times. But anyway, yeah, wandering back into the house 2 hours later than planned, not ideal. But we made it. I love reading. I love, and something that I hadn't been able to do really, but I love reading sort of stuff which just completely disconnects me from what else is happening. So I'm reading a great book called Tempest at the minute, which is about revolution in the Royal Navy between 1793 and 1799. There we go. There's your niche. And then this is, here we go. This is my inner nerd speaking out here, but I love painting Warhammer. So little figures. I just love it. I'm not good at it at all, but it's just that lovely, intricate switch off. I can't beat it. And my wife just thinks I'm a massive nerd, but I think it's just the best thing ever, to be honest. Yeah. But I found that 7 till 10 phone block, it's just been the best thing ever. It's just allowing me to reconnect and just like take a chill time, I think. And it's been so invaluable. I'd really recommend people trying it, actually, because it's just really nice.
I feel a bit anxious at the thought of that, but yeah, I might have to give it
I know,
a go.
it's horrible. It's horrible. And then the thing is, your phone, because you can like lock it out on iPhone, and then suddenly it ends at 10 o'clock, and it's like ping, 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 ping. You're like, oh my goodness, what have I here? So you sort of, but then, and then the next learning on that is how to just forget about that as well, and just be like, okay, we're all right. Nobody's died. Nobody's,
Yeah.
Oh, the worst thing that's happened is the hockey club can't get into the lockup to get the hockey balls out. Fine, that's not the end of the world. Just pretend you've got a hockey ball. I don't know.
What personal tips or strategies would you share with budding entrepreneurs to not only survive but thrive in a competitive business environment? And I guess you've already said about kind of understanding that cyclical thing that it might not necessarily be a law of nature, as it were, but almost near enough. But in accepting that, I suppose.
Definitely, yeah. So I think, first of all, not expecting it, because some people just go on and it just literally goes whoop. It's amazing. It's the best thing ever. I said earlier, I think the most important thing that I could say is don't lose your creativity.
Mm.
At the minute, I'm sort of toying, and me and my colleague, a guy called Chris Jackson, who's based in Lincolnshire, he's our director entrepreneurship, and we're toying with this like cycle of basically entrepreneurialism, which is imagine. So starting off with imagine, and you were there at the Social Enterprise Network conference, Moral Imagination Activism, Phoebe Tickell. If you do one thing today, go and check that out because it's wonderful. But dreaming big. So start off dreaming big. What is to quote, I can't remember the exact quote, but basically like talk about like a vast and endless sea. So what is your vast and endless sea? And once you've imagined, I'd say then innovate. So think about how you can actually, innovate and create something which will fill that need, if you like, and hit that business goal, that business target, whatever it is that you've got. And then I say implement it. So go and do it. Just give it a go and see how it goes. But then it is a key thing. So improvise. Like I say, people spend months and months writing these business plans, and they put, their blood, sweat, and tears into it. And that's not a bad thing at all. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But when things come to actual reality and you're kind of in this, oh, it's not quite working phase, the worst thing that you can do is just keep on banging your head against a brick wall, when actually what you could be doing is trying something a bit different, a bit more niche, a bit more down that wing, something which has worked that you weren't expecting, to then, sort of make it a bit different. And so that's why I think that improvisation is really important. And like I say, it all comes down to that creativity aspect. So don't be rigidly blinkered thinking, right, I've got to do it like that. Explore, try new things. Entrepreneurship, enterprise, it's all about adding value, isn't it? And you can do that in a number of ways. And I really think that sort of that exploring new concepts and creativity, that's just really important. So don't lose that, basically.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I love all that. Imagination, innovate, improvise, absolutely. Okay, good. So what's one thing that you wish you knew if you were just starting your journey again? One thing that you'd know now that would have been helpful to know back then, I suppose.
Yeah. I was reflecting on this because it's really hard. Like, I've tried a load of different things, and the thing is I didn't ever really not enjoy those things. They weren't the right thing. Do you know what I mean? So I think certainly to someone who's kind of young, but actually, you know what, in any age, any walk of life, really, like there's a big old world out there, and you know, I think what we tend to do, and this is part of my catastrophizing, is we get really caught up in the immediacy of things without looking at that sort of bigger perspective of what's more. So, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, when I was working at Durham Duplex and sort of enjoying it, but knowing it probably wasn't the place for me, what advice I could have given myself back then would have been, well, Richard, you're only 24. Don't worry about it. You've got a whole life ahead of you. You will find the right thing. I'm not saying that, everyone will be sort of given this wonderful job, this wonderful thing that they can step into, but often these things, they do sort of find you a little bit. And so the best advice I'd give to anyone is just don't panic. You're young, you've got opportunities, they are there, and keep on pursuing that. Yearn for that vast and endless sea, if you like. Because I think that for me, that's what I needed to be told when things weren't going quite to plan. You know, do it. And the other thing is, like, sometimes you've just got to do it. Like, you've just got to go for it. Like, for me, actually, when I took up the position at Purple Shoots, it was a risky position because I was going from a recently MOD taken over institution, the biggest industrial Behemoth, if you like, in the city of Sheffield Forge Masters. It was a wonderful job. I was walking along Brightside Lane watching like 100-ton red hot ingots flying through the air. It was an absolute like paradise of like, boys and toys and things like that. But I then said, well, actually, no, there's an opportunity here to do something different. And I had to be brave because actually it might not have worked out. And thankfully it has. And, we've really come a long way since. And I'm blooming grateful for that. But it could have been a disaster and we had to take that chance. So sometimes, unfortunately, we've just got to take that chance and really go for it, and see where it goes. Because, the worst that was going to happen is, I might have been unemployed for a bit, but thankfully I wasn't. And I'm really grateful for that.
Okay, thank you. And it makes me think about as well as sort of like the young entrepreneurial end, certainly I've seen since COVID a lot more people have either been made redundant or people just rethinking their lives who might have been employed for years and years and sort of in their latter stages and are still making the plunge. So I suppose it's about how you still then kind of go for it and take that leap of faith, really.
This is it, yeah. And I think, well, the wonderful thing with sort of potentially older entrepreneurs is with that comes a lot of experience, and probably a workplace history which is really varied and vibrant, and you've got so many skills. So yeah, I mean, similarly, we've had some older entrepreneurs applying to us, and their ideas are brilliant, and they sort a lot of it is they've sort of been somewhere else, seen how someone else has done it, think, what, I could do a better job than that, and then they tend to do it.
Is there anything else you want to say or add to what you've already talked about?
Yeah, so like I've talked a lot about kind of being creative, dreaming, if you like, imagination, and sort of longing for better. And so I've got a little lad, William. He's 9 months old now, and he doesn't know what this is. But I've been reading it to him because I think it's a lovely, it's a beautiful book, and it's got really complex meanings, complex things. But I've been reading him the Little Prince. It's a wonderful little book by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And it was funny last night when I was reading it to him, I got to the bit where he met the fox. Now, obviously, 9 month old William doesn't have a clue what's going on here, but actually, this really spoke to me, and I hope this is something that we can all live by. And I'm going to really encourage William as he grows up to live by this. But it's this. So, and now here is my secret. This is the fox speaking to the little prince, who's really confused by what he's seeing in planet Earth. And now here is my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. Um, I think that especially in this day and age, we've been like absolutely battered by, I think, like, technology, by social media, by so much, which is like Phoebe Tickell again uses this kind of idea of like our imagination's being colonized, it's been taken over. And with that, we're not seeing things as we are meant to see them. I believe that everyone is inherently, has potential. They have something they can give. They are wonderful human beings, and that statement, "It is only with the heart that one can see rightly," really resonates with me because essentially, what I think Antoine de Saint-Exupéry is telling us to do is to really believe and to follow our heart almost, to trust that what is instinctive, what is in front of us is the right path, and not to be told, "Oh, do this or do that," or sort of go with what the world might tell us. I think that to me is just that's really big, and imagining back, quite a while ago now, to all the fun that I had as a youngster, playing Lord of the Rings and all of that with my mates, and just, being a child. I think we maybe need to do that a little bit more, and find that inner imagination, find that inner something which really, can push us forward. So I'm really that's kind of that for me is something I'm trying to live by a little bit at the minute. And it's, yeah, some people are going to say that is completely wacky, Richard. That is absolutely nuts because, how can you ever get anything done when you're just doing that? But like, I think there's bigger stories out there. There's far
Mm.
bigger, and I think only with the heart can we see those bigger stories. So yeah, that's the one for me. Yeah.
I really like that. Thank you. It reminds me of when I did my coach training. My tutor always told us go and have permission to go and play in the sand, not literally, but try out different techniques, that kind of thing. And that heart bit that you mentioned really resonates as well. So often, kind of, what's your head telling you, what's your heart telling you, what's your gut, and sometimes actually your heart is really important in that. Really,
Absolutely,
okay,
yeah, yeah. And
lovely.
I love that your mentor, your coaches said, go and have some messy play time, go and play in the sandpit. That's because how else are we gonna like discover things? Thinking back to making pyramids on the beach, it wasn't when I was younger, it wasn't that I could make it first time straight away. It took me a lot of time, a lot of attempts and years to master that pyramid, but we got there. And I think that's what we need to do. And I do think that, like, to build on that, actually, like, the systems in the country, they need to change to, I'm getting a bit political here, sorry. But the systems in the country, they do need to change to allow more of that. And I think that at the minute, society, it's stagnating, and it's not letting people really truly express themselves and truly explore themselves. And I think that, like, we really notice that in society nowadays with, communities that just they've been kind of left behind. And oh man, I'd love for more messy play for everyone, to be honest. Let's build a sand pit in every community in the country and get people just to go and have some fun.
Yeah, why
Yeah.
not? Why
Yeah.
not? Brilliant. And then I always finish off with asking people, I guess, if they've got a question for me. I don't know what's coming, so yeah, here we
Oh,
go.
this is it. Yeah, no. So I think I'm going to stick on this kind of only with the heart that one can see rightly kind of idea. But tell me something, Mark, in your kind of in your present, in your past, in your future that you see with your heart, and that your heart really guides you towards. Because I'm really intrigued by this. Now, yeah, go on, tell me.
Mm, wow, really good question. I think for me, and it might sound a bit cheesy, but I think it's always that making that difference and really making transformation, whatever. And that doesn't have to be massive transformation, but it's, when I deliver training, and, even in a few hours, you see the journey people have gone on, or, if I'm coaching somebody, just holding that space and seeing how powerful that can be for them. So for me, that, I suppose it's about that, making a difference, making impact, guided by purpose, I suppose. That's really important. And when I've done work in the commercial sector before, that's not always sat easy with me, having worked in the voluntary sector and done so much for so long. I wouldn't say I'm driven by money and profit, although of course you need it, don't you, to
You do,
help
yeah,
others and do some more stuff. But yeah, I think definitely that kind of making a difference. And the other thing I've learned, which more so your gut rather than the heart, I suppose, but for me it goes alongside, is to trust your gut. So there's been occasions when I'm like, well, my head's saying this stacks up on paper, my heart's saying I really want to do this, but my gut's saying there's just something that grates a little bit, is not quite right. And that doesn't necessarily mean I don't do it, but it's also, what do I need to pay attention to, I think.
yeah.
If that makes sense. But yeah, really good question, like that.
There you go. Sorry, I told you it was a good one. A bit different, I bet, to what you're used to.
Yeah, no, good, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, I really appreciate it. And yeah, your insights and being so open and honest as well, I really, really like it. So thank you for your time.
My pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.